Hi everyone and welcome to STEM School. Today we'll be looking at factorising quadratics. So we'll be putting expressions back into double brackets, just like we did before with putting expressions back into single brackets. So this is a technique that you'll be using over and over again in the world of maths. And as always, I've got plenty of examples and exam questions for GCSE and Scottish National 5. So let's get started. So what is a quadratic? Well, a quadratic is an expression where the highest power is the square term. So you'll get an expression like this. So you'll get ax squared plus bx plus c. And we get this as our final answer when we multiply out double brackets, which you should have hopefully seen in my previous videos. And what we want to do is to put this expression back into double bracket form. This is one of those techniques that you'll have to use over and over again, especially when you're solving quadratic equations, things like that. Now, we're going to go over the different types of quadratics you could get, and I'll explain the two methods to work it out, which is the basic method, where you have this form, ax plus or minus bx plus or minus c, and then the second type, which is the difference of 2 squared, which takes the form x squared minus a squared. This is still a quadratic, as the highest power is the x squared term, okay? And when it comes to factorising questions, I just want to reiterate that you should always try to look for common factors so you can simplify the expressions down, and then you can carry on with the factorising process. Alright, so what we're going to do is start off with the basic method, and there's a few different scenarios it could hit you with. We're going to start off with the simplest scenario, which is the form x squared plus or minus bx plus or minus c. So the first step to work this out is to appreciate that x times x is equal to x squared. So you just put these x's in these brackets in this form, so we can set up the final answer like this, because we know the first term already. Now, what they have to do now is to find the two numbers that multiply together to make c and add up to make b. So this is a trial and error process because you're dealing with positive and negatives, okay? So the easiest way to understand this is with examples, okay? So we'll do this one. We've got x squared plus 6x plus 8. So using this process, we can set up the final answer already because we don't have a number in front of the x squared term. Okay, so x times x, using the process of multiplying at double brackets, that's what should always be in your mind. So we ticked out the first term. Now let's look at the final number. We've got a positive 8. So what combination of numbers multiply to make positive 8? So I know that 1 times 8 makes 8. Then we also have 2 times 4. That's the only combinations, right? Now we have to ask ourselves which of these numbers add up to make 6, okay? So 1 plus 8 doesn't make 6. Well, 2 plus 4 makes 6. So we know this is a combination we're after. So we can substitute that in. Right, so these are the numbers we're after, right? Now this is where the trial and error process comes in. We just have to assess the sign convention, right? So we're after a positive 6x. So what we can do, I can put a plus here because x times positive 4, I'll get a positive 4x. And then I can do a plus here, and then I'll get positive 2x. So plus 4x plus 2x, and that will make the positive 6x. So it's just trial and error, okay? Just to get the sign convention. Now let's go into this question. We've got an x squared plus an x minus 30. This is a bit hard, we've got a minus here. But the start is the same. We don't have a number in front of the x squared term, so we could put x in the double brackets like this. And then let's look at the final number. We've got minus 30, right? So what combination of numbers make minus 30? Well, we can have 1 times 30. We can have 2 times 15. We can have 3 times 10. We can also have 5 times 6. So that's the combinations, right? So which of these combinations add up to make positive 1? So you have to take into account positive and negatives. So if I do positive 6 minus 5, that'll get positive 1, right? So I know I'll have a positive 6 and then I'll have a minus 5. Okay, so again, it's just trial and error trying to work these out, okay? But it's just the same process as before. So for this second scenario, we've got a number in front of the x squared term, which is annoying because it's harder to deal with, right? And when you get this scenario, the first thing to think is common factors. Can I make the number in front of the x squared term common factor and get rid of it? And when you do that, you put that number outside the brackets, and then you just use the technique of factorising into single brackets that we've done in previous videos to do this. So let's go into the first example, right? So we've got 3x squared plus 15x plus 12. So when you look at the numbers 3, 15 and 12, you recognise their factors, right? So we can take the number 3 outside the brackets, okay? And then just factorise it. So 3 times, so it'll be x squared, then 3 times what makes 15x, it'll be 5x. 3 times what makes 12, it'll be positive 4, okay? Now, here, it will just follow the same steps as before for scenario 1, that procedure, right? So we've got x squared plus 5x plus 4. Okay, so we know it will be 3, and then you just put the x, so write double brackets, just like this, okay? And then we have to look at the last number, the 4. So what combination numbers makes 4? So I know 1 times 4 makes 4, and then 2 times 2 makes 4, okay? So it's just a little bit of trial and error here, okay? So I'm going to do 4, right? Because if I do x times positive 4, I'll get positive 4x. And when you add them together, you can make 5x. So it's kind of close to it. So I'm going to gamble with that. I'm going to put 4 here. And then the other number for this combination is 1. So I'll put it here. I just have to check the sign convention now. So we'll do positive 4x. And then it's going to be a positive 1x, isn't it? To make the 5x, okay? So that's how you work this one out. So let's move on to the next question. We've got 4x squared minus 4x minus 8. So is there a common factor? Yes, you can take the 4 out, okay? So let's do that. So put 4 outside the brackets. Now 4 times what makes 4x squared? So that will be just be an x squared term. Then 4 times what makes minus 4x? So it'll be minus x, right? Then 4 times what makes minus 8? So it'll be minus 2. Okay, so same as before, and for scenario 1 procedure, so we've got x squared minus x minus 2. So the first step is to write the x at the start of the double brackets. So we'll write the double brackets, x, and then x. Okay, now we check the number at the end, so we've got 2. So this is easy because only combination numbers that makes 2 is 1 times 2. So I know 2 and 1 will go in these brackets, right? But what's the sign convention here? So this is where you need to be careful. So if I do minus 2, so I'll get x times minus 2 will be minus 2x, right? Then to make minus 1x, I'll just have to plus it. Okay, so that's a mindset you should have to work these out. For this last scenario of this form, we're unable to get rid of the a in front of the x squared, as it isn't a factor of b and c, so it's a little bit more awkward. But what we have to do here is just to add a step at the very beginning. We just have to find the terms that multiply to make ax squared. So in your head you should think what times what is equal to ax squared, right? And then the next step is similar to before. You find the numbers that multiply to make c and add to make b. But it's a bit more trial and error here, okay? So we'll just get an example so we can see how to do this. So let's look at the first term. We've got 3x squared. So what times what makes 3? So I know this is a simple number because it's just 3 times 1. That's the only combination to make this number. So we can say we'll have 3x here, and then we have x in the second bracket at the beginning. So 3x times x makes a 3x squared. Now let's look at the 7, okay? So what combination of numbers makes 7? So this is easy again because it's only 7 times 1. That makes 7, okay? So we know a 7 and 1 will go into these brackets, but in which order and what sign convention. So this is where the trial and error method comes in, because you need to add it up to make minus 22x. So I know, looking at this, that 3 times 7 is equal to 21. So that's close to the 22 in the x term here. So I could do minus 7 here. So 3x times minus 7, I'll get minus 21x. Then if I do a minus 1 here, which is the other number for this combination, I'll get the minus 22x, okay? So that's how you do it. It's just trial and error, okay? So let's move on to the next one. So similar to before, we've got 3x squared. So I know that it'll be 3x, in one bracket and x in the other bracket, okay? Because the only combination is 3 times 1 to make 3. Now let's look at the number 6, right? So what combination of numbers make 6? We've got 2 times 3, and then we've got 6 times 1. So for trial and error, you just have to do different combinations to work out how to add them up to make 11x, okay? So if I was to do 3x times 3, I'd get positive 9, which is kind of close, okay? So I'm going to gamble and go with that one. So I'll do a positive 3 here, then the other number will be a 2, so the 2 will be in this bracket. But is it going to be a positive or negative? So 3x times positive 3, I'll get 9x, then I need to plus 2x to make the 11x, okay? So that's the mindset you should have when you're trying to work out the sign convention. And finally, we're going to be looking at the difference of two squares. Now this is a different form of the quadratic than we're used to. This takes the form x squared minus a squared. So what we're going to have is a square number here. And once you recognize that, you can replace it into this form. We have x minus a, x plus a. And you'll notice from this you have a minus and a plus, and you'll get rid of the x term, okay, because you've got the same number here on the outside. So that's how you get rid of it. So as always, you should always have the square numbers list in your head somewhere, right? So we'll have a go at this question. It's fairly simple. We've got x squared minus 100, okay? This assess the 100. Is this a square number? Well, yes it is, okay? This can be rewritten as 10 squared, okay? So 10 times 10. So we can rewrite it as x squared minus 10 squared, right? And now let's just use this form. So we'd have x minus 10, x plus 10. And that's it, simple as that. So it doesn't matter what order you write the positive and negative, okay, it's the same thing. Now let's move on to this example. We've got 3x squared minus 48. So this is a little bit different from what we're used to. We've got a number in front of the x squared term. But whenever you get these kind of factorising questions, things like that, one thing you should always remember is, can I get a common factor out, okay? So we can get a common factor of 3 out of the 48, so we can take 3 out of the brackets. So we have 3, and then just use the rules of factorising into single brackets, okay, that I did in a previous video. So 3 times what makes x squared, so it'll be 3 times x squared. Then 3 times what makes minus 48, 3 times minus 16 makes 48. So this is a form like this, okay, because let's look at the number minus 16. Is 16 a square number? Yes it is, because it can be rewritten as 4 squared. So let's rewrite this whole expression. We've got x squared minus 4 squared, okay? Now we can just use this form and just copy it like this. We have 3x minus 4, x plus 4. Simple as that. Okay, so that's everything for today. I hope this has helped you guys out. And join me in my next video where we'll move on from expressions and deal with solving linear equations, and then later look at solving quadratic equations, okay? So I'll see you guys in the next video.